Okay, so in this video we will see a little bit more about the FastAPI. So in this video, like, we will cover about the environment configuration. So in the last two video, like what we have seen, like we created a very basic API, very basic FastAPI by importing the fast. In the first video we see, like, we have created a fast, we imported the FastAPI module, we created the instance of the FastAPI, and we created two routes which is returning some hard coded like a JSON object, right? And in the second video, like we could see like how to pass the metadata. In the first video, like, we pass the metadata by hard coding here, like we hard coded the title, we hard coded the version, we hard coded the description. In the second video, like rather than hard coding, we like define this configuration into config file, and like we are fetching all these configuration like title, version, description, name, contact email from the configuration file. So let me show you. Control X. So nano config.py. So like we have created one configuration file with the setting, and we have defined some our configuration, and like we created one object, and using this object we are accessing all these variables, right? Also, like we have like define one our requirement.txt. so till now we have not used anything, we just used FastAPI and the UV-corn. So and how to restart the app. So to restart the app, like we use the UV-corn server, and our file is the main file. So let me again show you. So our main file is the main file. Enter the main file. So UV-corn, which file we need to run? Main, but we don't need to put .py, we just write main. Under the main, like we have the app instance, and then minus reload option, so that like any changes can be get reflected. UV corn. Okay, so let me like because I have created some virtual environment, so let me activated that. Okay, UV-corn main app hyphen reload. Okay, so application has been started. So we know we can access on the port 8000, and documentation we can access on the docs. So everything coming from the configuration file, like title is coming from the configuration file, the description is coming from the configuration file, contact name and the email is coming from the configuration file, the version is coming from the configuration file, and also like we created the two routes. Along with that, we put some tags as well, like this route is for, if there are any more route under the user, we can put under the all the routes, all the path under the user tag. So we created the these routes as well, right? So now we will like so let's pause. So let me first close this. So let's suppose, like, if we have to create some database connection, because in actual application, like we define not only this configuration, but we define a lot of configuration like username, password, database connection, database URL, port number, so many like a configuration, right? So what we will do, so in this, like we will use the PostgreSQL database. So first we will update the requirement.txt. so we have to define the PostgreSQL. So for the PostgreSQL, like we have like one like a Python package available, which is basically a Python PostgreSQL database adapter. So we have to install this, because like using the Python script, we will like connect with the Postgres database. So to connect that, like we need one package. So this is the package name, psycopg2. Okay, so but before that, make sure that like PostgreSQL and the pgadmin 4 should be installed in your system. So if you are on Ubuntu, so let me show you as well. install PostgreSQL on Ubuntu. If you go to the like if you have the using the Ubuntu, so you don't need to do anything, just issue one command sudo apt get install PostgreSQL, because PostgreSQL is available in by default in the Ubuntu version. But if you need any specific version, then you have to install from the PostgreSQL apt repository, and for that you have to follow all these steps if you want any specific version. Otherwise whatever the latest version will be available in your Ubuntu, it will be get simply installed using sudo apt -get install PostgreSQL. Along with that you can install the pgadmin 4. So similarly for the pgadmin 4, PostgreSQL is the database management system, but the pgadmin 4 is a kind of management tool. So it is a kind of management tool. Let me show you. So in the documentation or where, okay, download. So if you go to the download, you can download for the apt ubuntu package. So you can see here, because pgadmin 4 is not the default package available in Ubuntu, so you have to install from the Ubuntu apt repository. There are so many videos, even I installed in my system by looking at the YouTube videos, or some by just doing some Google. So you can install all these things like PostgreSQL and the pgadmin, right? So we need PSYCO pg2 because in future video we will try to connect with the PostgreSQL. Along with that we will use the SQL Alchemy. Why we use the SQL Alchemy? Because SQL Alchemy is basically the ORM mapper. So rather than writing the standard SQL queries, we will use the ORM queries. This is generally nowadays recommended, because if we write some standard SQL queries, we have to take care of so many things, make sure if we write some standard SQL queries, we have to take care we have to write a query in such a way that one should not able to do SQL injection. So but if we use SQL Alchemy, then there is a very less chances for the SQL injection. Alright, so we need this. Along with that we will use the python.env package. So what this package basically do is, generally this is not required, but it is recommended. Why it is recommended? Because let's suppose if you have to set environment variables when you do the work on your local system. So generally the password, the username, password, database URL, port number, database name. So generally these you defined into the system environment variables, right? But if you give this particular your code to some another user, they have to set the system environment variables in their system as well, right? So if we don't want to set the system environment variables within the system, so what we can do is we can use the python.env package. So what .env package will do is, so we will create a one .env file, because the name is the same like python.env. so we will create a .env file. Within the .env file we will mention all the configuration, and from the .env file we will read the configuration. It will treat it as a environment variables only. So we need these three in the future video. So we have updated our requirement.txt. So let first try to install all these things. So pip3 install -r requirement.txt. So if you try to install it will fail. Let me show you. So you could see because PSYCO pg2 package got failed, and on googling it they told that not googling it, but by looking at the PyPy documentation, it says that there are some pre-requirement to successfully install the this particular package. So if you don't want to install the pre-requirement, so just install the PSYCPG2 binary. So we will use this. So we will update our nano.requirement.txt and we will install the binary. It will treat it as basically at the back end. It will install the dependency as well. So now if we reinstall all the package, so now we could see everything will be successfully get installed. So then a package are installed. So now we have to see we have to create the .env file, because we will set all these variables and because we have to set the environment variable. So rather than setting the environment variable into the system environment variables property, we will set in the .env. So we have created the .env file. So we will set a number of environment variable which is required. So first environment variable is required is the Postgres user. Other is password, Postgres password. So let's give any password, my password. Okay. Other thing is we need Postgres server where it is running. So we are running the Postgres on our local host. Other thing is port, on which port it is running. So by default Postgres run on the port number 5432. Let me show you as well. So there is a command net let me run the sudo netstat command, and let me show you TCP port, UDP port, all the listening port, numeric in number and P4 port, and let me do grep 5432. Okay, it is not available. What is the command? -tunlp. Yeah, it is -tunlp. So we could see Postgres is running on a 5432 port and it is listening. So it's it is basically up. Alright. So by default it is 5432 port. Along with that we need the database name, which database we want to connect. Postgres database. So it could be MyDB. So any name you can give. So it doesn't necessarily you have to give Postgres _ user, but make sure that you should give some some specific such name, so that anyone can able to understand okay what is this. Okay, so we have defined the did the entry in the .env file. So it is same as the entry which we generally do in the system environment properties, but rather than doing within the system, we will use the python.env package. And if we are using the python.env package, and so we have to do the configuration into the .env file. So we have did the configuration into the .env file. Now we have to use this configuration, right? We have to use this configuration somewhere in our code to connect with the database, right? So before that, what we will do, so we have to use this basically configuration. We have to import that configuration first in our settings files, because from this settings file, whatever the configuration we will define here, because I told you all the configuration we will define into the config file, like database, password and all these things. But generally password and this sensitive information we should not define here, and we should define into the system variables. But rather than the system variable, we define into the .env file. So first we have to do is we have to load that particular .env file. So we have installed the python.env package. So what we will do, from .env import load.env. So we are basically loading the .env file, .env path, I think. And what is the path for the So this is the path, like it is on the like current directory. Okay, now we have to, also like we have to import the OS module, import OS. So now we have to define the like all the like configuration. So os dot get env postgres user. So now like we are doing os dot get env, we are telling our OS module to pull the environment variable, but rather than pulling the environment variable from the system, it is pulling the environment variable from the .env file, because we load the .env file. I think this is the syntax, but let me cross verify from the Google ones. I think .env path, my net is not running. Okay, and let it be. Okay, it start loading. Why it is so slow? Okay, so but meanwhile, like let define other thing. So postgres password is equal to os dot get env postgres password. Postgres server is equal to os dot get env Postgres server, and by default the server is localhost. Either you define here localhost or not define, it doesn't matter, because we have defined into the .env file, so it will pick from here. Postgres port os dot get env Postgres port. So by default port is 5432. Okay, so Postgres database, what is the database? Os dot get env Postgres database, and what is the default database? MyDB. And here we have to create the URL. So basically like generally the Postgres URL are into this format, like PostgreSQL, then colon / user dot password at the localhost 5432 other DB. That is the DB name. So let me check. Yeah, load .env path only. So I think we are correct. So it is a python .env package. Okay, so we have to create the like so first we will write PostgreSQL / and first we have to write the username. So username will be stored into this variable, so we are like fetching this variable. Then it is what is the syntax? Then it is colon, then password, Postgres password. Okay, then at the rate, then it is server, Postgres server, then again colon, then it is port, Postgres port, and then it is slash, then it is database, Postgres database. Okay, so we have like define all these things. Now we have defined, but whether we have defined it correctly or not, so what to do one thing, let create one more route just to fetch these environment variable, whether we are able to fetch these environment variable or not. So get env var. Okay, so let me define the tags as well. So let tags could be config. So def get env vars. So return database is equal to settings, because we define into the config variable. So database underscore URL. So if it is unable to read the database URL, then it means like we did something wrong. Control X, yes. So let's start the app. UVcorn main app -- reload. So we found some issue. Postgres server is not defined. Okay, let's cross check what we did wrong. So first check e.env file, post postgres server. Postgres server. So Postgres server is defined here. Okay, so let check the config file. Okay, here I put double s, so it's wrong. So now the app is started. So let's cross verify localhost 8000. So generally like we don't need to pull this information, but just to cross verify whether we set the information correctly or not. So I am like fetching via the REST API. So execute. Okay, it's internal server error, so something wrong. Settings is not defined. Okay, so I think the object name is setting. Let me check nano config.py. So object name is setting. So I have to correct in my main file. It actually setting, not settings. So now it's again started. So localhost 8000. Okay, app is up, but let's try to fetch whether we are able to fetch or not. So yeah, okay, so something is wrong here. So Postgres, we are unable to fetch the username and the password. So it's none and the none, right? So but ideally like we have set the like username and the password. So it means like we are unable to load the like .env file. So some issue with our .env package or some path, right? So we are unable to load that. So let's cross check what is the issue, because we able to fetch the localhost 543t mydb. Why we are able to fetch this? Because we define it as a default user. If it is unable to fetch from the .env, then it will automatically pick this, but it is picking from within the configuration file. But let me check. So where I have to see nano config.py file. So I think okay, it's .env. Let me restart the server and let me check. Now I am able to fetch the Postgres user. My password is my password localhost 543t. And if I let me show you as well. CD desktop. cat.env. So if you could see, like I have set the username at the Postgres and password as my password. So same like I am like able to fetch here. Why I am able to like fetch here? Because like we have loaded the environment variables using this python.env package, right? So we have loaded the environment variables from the .env file. and we are like using the OS module, because even if you set let's suppose if you have not defined your environment variables in .env file, let's suppose you define into your own system, so how you will read the environment variable? So you will read using os.getEnv, or there are many more like ways. I think one way is os.environment, and then you pass a particular variable name. All right, so this is one way. So there are multiple ways, but this is generally recommended because it will not give the key error. If let's suppose this doesn't exist, it will return the none. But if we use the os dot environment, and then we will give the key, and if that particular environment variable doesn't exist, then it will, or somehow it get deleted, then our program will fail, and it will say, it will give the key error. It is same as the dictionary basically, like in the dictionary, in the Python dictionary, if we try to get some key using this method, then it will give key error. But if you try to get the key from this method, get key, then it will not give error. Right, so it is like the other way basically actually to fetch the environment variables. So we are loading the environment variables into our environment. It means now when you try to fetch this environment variable, it will read from here only. Okay, so this is basically a short video in which because in the coming videos we will set up a database connection. But before the database connection, we should know because we will not hard code all these things in our main.py file. So we have to arrange our code in such a way, we have to put all the configuration into the configuration file. But we know in the configuration file we can't define the password or any sensitive information, right? So rather than defining the password directly here, we have to store the password or any such information into the environment variables. So we have two options: either we will use the python.env package, or either we will define into our system variables. So rather than the system variables, because if I define into the system variable and if I share this code with you guys, then you have to, before running this code, you have to define the system variable at your end as well. But now in this case, I have defined into the .env file, so only I will share the .env file. You have to update your .env file depend upon your username and the password of the PostgreSQL, and you will directly run that, because we are loading the environment variable from the .env. Python.env is the package. So let me show you. So python.env basically reads key value pair from a .env file. That's why we have created the .env file and it set them as environment variables. So it has own advantage, and also we updated our requirement.txt file because we need PSYCOPG2, and we also need the SQL alchemy, because we will in the coming videos we will not write the ground SQL queries, very basic SQL queries, but we will use the ORM which automatically create the internal SQL. So for the ORM, we have so many package available in the market, but we will use the SQL alchemy, which is most popular. So yes, so this is a short video, and we also see how basically why I have created this, just to cross verify whether I have set everything correctly or not, because when I trigger this, I found so many issues, right? And later on I found that okay, I have not set so many things correctly. So okay, so that's the end of the video. So it's a very small video. Yeah, thank you.